Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Angry Boss Tries to Pick a Fight with US Army. So this all happened in the last few weeks. For reference, I'm a battalion-level officer in the Army Reserve. While I was getting my master's, I took an overnight gig doing unimportant things. Mostly my coworkers are 19 to 22-year-olds in college or just out of high school. Pay was good and I could focus on my studies all night. I graduated with my master's in 2018, but job market for my field and my area was hard for a while. I had a good relationship with the owner of my company and the pay was really good. Plus the Army has me working in my field, so I just decided to stay. Fast forward to 6 months ago. I've been here 4 years now. Every manager or supervisor has nothing but praise for me and I've made zero mistakes that cost the company any money or time. New boss. Good guy. Flexible. Works with people to get people's schedules they want. But over time, personal issues or something get in his head. I suspect he doesn't like struggling to schedule around my military duties, but who knows? He starts name-calling, being condescending, or ranting and raving at me for unclear reasons every time he sees me. He wants things cleaned up, but is never able to quite articulate what that means, and my attempts never satisfy him. One time he ranted at me for sweeping wrong. Another time for calling him when nobody showed up to relieve me for an hour past my shift. And the guys on the schedule said they were told they didn't need to come in. When he does manage to give a specific instruction, he'll show up the next day and rant and rave and yell that I didn't do it before he told me. Well, now my comfortable, well-paying job is no longer peaceful and I have better things to do than listen to a man-child be angry at the world every day. So I hop on Indeed and apply for a couple jobs in my field. By now I have the master's and 6 years experience doing it in the Army, so I land some interviews and within a few weeks get an offer for double my salary. Soon after, as I'm still working on the onboarding process for the new company, he becomes enraged that a garbage can is dirty. I shit you not. A garbage can is dirty. I listen to him rant and name call and all that fun stuff, and the next day, I roll my eyes and wash the garbage can. He responds by yelling at me some more because I didn't wash it before being told to, called me some names, then threatened to fire me. So I shrugged and wrote up my 2-week notice and handed it to him the next day. Turned out that threat was a bluff. He is now very short-staffed, and he blew up again. Yawn. The next day though I noticed something peculiar on our work app. My time off request, filed months ago, for upcoming military orders, had been denied. I laughed it off because obviously that's a misclick on his part. But nope. I come in for work again, and he very smugly informs me that I will be working through the whole next week. I have military obligations. I don't care. I denied your time off request. I have orders from the military. I can't be here. Nope. I denied it. You can't do that. Yes, I can. This is what you get for not respecting me and acting like a child. I'm denying your time off request, so figure it out. Can I have in writing that you're denying me unpaid time off for military duty? Ladies and gentlemen, if asked for something in writing, a smart man would stop and reconsider. A smart man actually would have realized well before talking to me that trying to tell an army battalion that they can't have one of their captains because a 35-year-old civilian middle manager is being petty is a really dumb idea, and is in fact illegal. But my boss is not a smart man. Maybe he once was, but he is now an angry, vengeful, petty man that, at this point, believes he has won a mighty victory over his enemy. So he puts it in writing, and then walks off with a confident swagger, shouting over his shoulder. Figure it out. If you insist. So after my shift, I wait for our main office to open and I call the company's owner for the first time since this new boss started. Friendly chat, and then I tell him I'm calling just to warn him that his manager is trying to pick a fight with the DOD, and that I wanted to call and let him know and get it resolved unofficially. Owner thanked me for calling him, assured me that I would of course have those days off, and asked me what my perceptions were of the new boss. I gave him my opinion that he was once great, but has turned into the most toxic, abusive person I've ever worked for. We wished each other well, and then hung up. I don't know what happened next, but I suspect the owner politely and calmly informed him that small businesses don't like their managers picking fights with the federal government, because when my new schedule came out, I had my drill days off, and my boss avoided me after that. I'm taking a vacation after drill and then starting my new job as an expert in my field on Memorial Day, working autonomously with clients, and he will remain there, angry, frustrated and stressed. I figured it out, bossman. Next one is titled, Fast on the Gate. I was military police a while back. I was assigned to gate duty on a base that was very strict with who was allowed on. Since the base was so strict, there was little traffic coming in the base after the morning rush. The civilian that worked the gate had set up a little movie player to help pass the time. Well, I'm watching a film when I notice a van pulling up. I know it's a few guys from my company coming in on their off day to use the gym. I step outside to greet them as they pull up and do the formality of ID checks. In the back is my current sergeant. Now I want to say that I love this guy. He was always a good leader and really cared about his soldiers, but today he was in a mood. He leans up from the back and starts yelling at me. You're supposed to be out here and visible from the moment we can see the gate. We should never not be able to see you. You need to be faster. I wanted to ask how that works, because if I could see them then they could see me. I'd literally have to stand outside the whole time, making answering the phone impossible, but I let him yell. As finished I responded. Roger. Roger what? Roger Sergeant. Do your job the right way. No slacking off. At this point I noticed that the base pass tags for the van they were in had expired. So I turned to the young LT driving and said, "Sir, your pass is expired, I can't let you on post." I instructed him that he needed to go to the visitors center with the person that signed for the van, not there at the time, and get the pass renewed. They had to find the person that signed for the van and have them come to the center so they could get a new pass. This whole thing took about an hour or so. They come back through the gate and I made sure I was outside the whole time. I asked if I was out here fast enough this time and he shrugged at me as I let them through. Next one is titled, I Can't Drink on the Floor? We'll see. A few years ago, I was working at the local grocery store while going to school. They had the ridiculous rule that employees couldn't have anything to drink on the floor. No soda or coffee I could understand, but you weren't even allowed to have a bottle of water. Just imaging, a 6-hour shift with one 15-minute break, on your feet, talking to customers and scanning their groceries the whole time, with nothing to drink. On to the day in question. I worked the customer service desk, where line of sight was easily blocked from customers, and I often broke the rule, having a bottle of water back there. Until my store manager happened to see me taking a sip one day. He wrote me up. Big deal. I was going to my doctor a few days later for something unrelated. I asked her during the appointment if she'd write me a note saying I needed to hydrate during my work shift. She was understandably appalled that the store didn't let employees drink, so she gladly wrote me the note. I took it in and showed my store manager the next day. He said of course I could drink, there wasn't anything against that in the rules. I just couldn't have the water on the floor. I had to leave it in the break room. I asked, just to clarify, since my doctor's note said unrestricted hydration, that meant I was able to leave my post at any time to get a drink. He said yes. Well, okay then. I put my water in the break room and went down to my shift. 20 minutes or so, I got thirsty, so I called my floor manager over. I told her I needed her to cover the desk for a few minutes so I could go get a drink, as the store manager said I was allowed to. She rolled her eyes, of course, but what could she really do? I went, got my drink, and came back to work. Did that I think 3 times. I'm not a totally horrible person, so I didn't ask when we were insanely busy. The next time after that, though, she told me she had talked to the store manager, and he changed his mind. I was allowed to keep my water bottle at the service desk. Next one is titled, "You're going to cancel my vacation leave because I got sick?" Okay. This is going to be in the same vein as a lot of other posts here, but it still sucks that it happened to me. My vacation leave credits expire next month, so I requested 5 days off hoping to go home to my family and get some rest. Only one day got approved, and it's in the middle of the week. Reasoning being that we're short-staffed, as usual. I suddenly had a very bad flare-up of arthritis in the beginning of last week. I could barely sit up, and walking up the stairs to get to my workstation, I work at home, is out of the question. So I took a day off, and my boss said okay, that's fine, but we're going to have to cancel your vacation leave, since you're going to rest anyway. It's not like I had any rest when I was writhing on my bed in pain. Spite empowered me and I managed to get to a hospital with the last of my strength, and my boyfriend's help, to get my fluids drained. I felt a lot better, but I was in so much pain in the beginning that my doctor seemed to take pity on me and gave me 5 days rest, and he told me to just contact him if I need more. I was only planning to rest it out for a day or two more, but I ended up having a whole week, or more if I feel like it, to myself feeling much better. I was even able to go home. The best thing is that it's all paid since I also have plenty of sick leave credits left and there's nothing they can do about that. Next one is titled, "Don't want to listen to me? Okay, I'll keep the extra money." This will probably be one of the pettiest posts on this subreddit. The malicious compliance ended up costing the jackass rupees 100, which is just slightly more than $1, and it isn't about the money. What I got out of this was a boatload of satisfaction that no money can buy. Context. I was in college and I am from India. So, I'm at a local eatery near my college. It was a usual hangout spot for a lot of college students. The owner-manager was a real jackass, and I'll be referring to him as such. Specifically towards the college students, assuming that we were always rowdy and bad crowd in general. Typical Indian old age mentality. Cue to one day, 4 of us went there and ordered chocolate milkshakes for 2 and Oreo milkshakes for 2. I don't remember the exact total, but I do remember that he ended up giving me rupees 100 more in change than I should have gotten back. I realized this after I had taken the order back with me to our table. I went back to return the extra rupees 100. Now, just so everyone knows, I'm not that extroverted and I'm not good with crowded places, and the eatery was quite busy. Lots of people placing orders and all. So I just waited for a while. Probably 3 to 4 minutes. The owner glanced towards me 2 to 3 times. He kept staring daggers at me. After the said time the crowd had reduced a bit, I said excuse me, to which he responded with a, "What?" in the worst tone ever possible. He actually replied in Hindi, which with his tone sounded much more condescending than a simple, "What?" can ever sound. Anyways, I start off with, "I think you gave me the wrong change," and before I could explain any further he simply walked away and started talking to another customer. I waited for another minute and then said, "Excuse me," again. And he replied with, "You should have counted the change when you got it. Go away now." I said okay and walked away. The rupees 100 isn't really much. I consider that to be rudeness fees that I got to keep. Last one is titled, "Serve the Cake." This happened 30 years ago. It was the second job I ever had in my life, taken because the owner's son at my first job fell in love with me and became abusive and enraged that I was dating someone, and I ended up quitting after locking myself in a bathroom for an hour for my own safety. But that is another story. This was a tea room, and they catered events. My first shift we were catering a wedding. I had been told to wear my best wedding clothes. I wore a beautiful white blouse and a lovely skirt. I arrived at the venue, served the wedding, and then, I got to wash every pot and pan in the kitchen at the venue. My wedding clothes were ruined, and in addition, I got yelled at for leaving contamination on a pot that seriously doubt had been scrubbed clean in my lifetime. I was pretty mad, but I needed the job, and I thought it would surely get better. I was wrong. My next shift, I was serving in the tea room. I was pulled aside and told by the owner that I was to forfeit all of my tips and work only for my base pay. Because I was young and I didn't need the money, and her son was in jail and he needed it more than I did. I reasoned that she had no way of tracking cash tips, so I resolved the issue by making sure I got generous tips and pocketing half. Not illegal, and she had no way of knowing, and I could keep the job. The next time I was called in, I was told to head down to basement. This was apparently a religious place, I had no idea, and everyone was in the basement singing hymns while chopping watermelon and putting it in a blender. This was for watermelon punch, to be served the following day at a catered event. The blender being used was old and standing in an inch of water. It kept mildly electrocuting those of us lucky enough to be tasked with using it. I was pretty rapidly reaching the end of my patience. My next shift I was working their catering event. This one actually was fine. Maybe the only shift where there was nothing completely insane going on. My next shift was my last. The tea room had a display case filled with beautiful cakes and pies. Customers could select what they wanted. A huge party of 30 people came in. It was explained that since we did not split tips, I was responsible for serving this party all on my own. I think the party was given to me because the owner felt it would be a big tip, and knew I would be forced to give it to her after. I slaved running back and forth, taking orders, serving drinks, rushing out food. I managed it all, and in the end I got a huge tip. I kept half and gave her half, and I said nothing. As they were leaving, I was seated again. This time a party of 2. I was exhausted and this meant I would be working past my scheduled shift. I sucked it up and served them. At the end, they walked over to the display case and chose dessert. I pulled the desserts out, and one was moldy. I showed the owner, and her response? Serve the cake. I suppose I could have argued, and I truly felt bad for the customer, but this was all I could take. I was exhausted and I was done. I served the cake. It was not long before the mold was noticed. When I walked out that final time, the owner was yelling at the customer who was screeching back. Predictably, she tried to blame me. I just cursed her out, told the customer the truth, and left. Thanks for listening.